Today it's going to be really special. An awesome author is going to come on the live session. Hi, Manreet. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. How are you?
Good, good, good. Is my audio fine? Everything good?
Yes, I can hear you and I can see you.
Goodness gracious. My phone just gave up on me and I'm on another phone. Anyways, so
Oh, well, technology, as I say, the mantra is embrace the chaos.
oh really, really, really. Whenever I think I'm chill, just I read the book, everything is fine, I'm going to go live, and suddenly something, goes off. Anyways, the Wi-Fi or 4G or whatever or 5G.
Right. No,
But
well, so that's
great.
good.
Awesome. So, okay, this is a very new experience because, these sequels don't happen that often and don't really, it's kind of great to read a sequel in some terms, although it can be read alone as well. So, this is a book we are going to talk about. It's called Hyderabad and it's book two in the trilogy. I would say such a magnum opus, and that is an understatement. Trust me, guys. I mean, it's incredible. When you read the book, uh, I would recommend it for first time readers because they'll get overawed by this trilogy. So you slightly, maybe the third book. Just take your time, read a couple of very easy ones, short stories, and then get to this one. But okay, I read this one. I think so. Exactly a year back, is it Lahore?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Okay. So,
September.
both the experiences were amazing. The reading experiences I'm talking about. Of course, those of you who don't know about Manreet, she is an author of 8 books, if I'm not incorrect, whatever I have read about you. And of course, most of them are highly acclaimed. And I can vouch for it because the writing is like so on point. We talked about this in the earlier session as well. But it's so on point and the subject, it is so hard to write about because you can't go wrong at all. I mean, let's be honest, you can't go wrong. Although I would say there's a lot of fiction in it as well. So, I mean, there is, of course, scope. But amazing to go through these books. I'm into the whole Partition Trilogy world right now, so I'm kind of overawed by all this. But Mandeep, first off, tell me, you have also written in the post, what do you call it, post-lude, or
Yeah.
at the end of the book. Let's call it that. At the end of the book, you also say that after Lahore, this was a bigger challenge because kind of the demographics, and I love having you on the Instagram live because the your cat always shows up. It is so wonderful. Love it.
Well, maybe she's going to be a part of this. She considers herself a co-writer. I call her an assistant, but
Yes.
she's a mascot for my writing. And
But
yeah,
she
I
shows
mean,
up natives as well then. It's
yeah,
unfair.
yeah, exactly. That's what my husband says. And my daughter, whose cat she is, says her name
Yeah.
should come first, then it should be yours, Amma. So, we still negotiate.
Yes. On the third book, this is going to happen. This is
Yes,
happening.
yes, we shall. By popular demand. I have,
Yes.
when I do press interviews, there are journalists who are aware of Nyx, that's the cat's name,
Okay.
uh, the black cat, and Nyx is NYX. It's named after the Greek goddess of the night.
Okay.
There are journalists who will say, कि मनरीत अपना photo भेजना लेकिन वो बिल्ली वाला. So, so the cat is very famous, and she will show up, even for
Yeah.
your viewers and readers. But
Love it. And matching as well.
yes, yes, we are. You're always matchy. So for your viewers who maybe have not read Lahore, are not aware about it, I thought I'll just begin with giving a sense of what the trilogy is.
Yeah.
It's called the Partition Trilogy, and obviously there are 3 books in this. Lahore is book 1, and then I have Hyderabad is book 2, and Kashmir, which will release next year, inshallah, is book 3. So, the Lahore looks at the 8 months leading up to the independence and partition of India. So really the timeline begins from February of 1947,
Yeah.
when Dickie Mountbatten, the last viceroy, arrives in India. And
Yeah.
it goes up to September of 1947, so a month after independence. And Hyderabad and Kashmir both follow after that and continue till the summer or September of 1948.
Yeah.
And though these two events in Hyderabad and in Kashmir are happening at the same time,
Right.
the events themselves are momentous and very significant, and therefore I have them in two separate books. You know, the story of Hyderabad has largely been forgotten. The fact that Hyderabad was actually an independent princely state. And on 15th of August 1947, the Nizam said that no, I am not acceding to India. I'm going to make up my mind whether I want to be independent or choose the option of acceding to Pakistan. Because that was an option which was available to all the princely states, when the British decided to leave. And that is a story which has largely been forgotten, how the negotiations happened with the Nizam, how the Nizam was tried to coax Nizam to accede to India. Because just imagine, we know the map of India as it exists.
Right.
And Hyderabad is not Telangana and Andhra Pradesh as we know it now. It actually had large parts of what is currently Maharashtra and Karnataka. So
Oh my God.
it was the largest princely state. It was also the wealthiest princely state. The Nizam was the wealthiest man in the world. And, it was 85% non-Muslim, largely a Hindu majority, but it was ruled by an elite which was Muslim, and obviously the Nizam's family, which had ruled for over 200 years. Now, and in this sort of landscape is also, there are what we today understand as competitive communalism. There is the Razakars, which is a militant wing, which wants obviously the Nizam to stay independent or accede to Pakistan, which is the new Muslim nation. Then there are the Arya Samaj and the Hindu Mahasabha, who are trying to sort of oppose and put up a retaliatory action against the Razakars.
Yeah.
And of course, there is there is spying, there is espionage happening, because the Nizam and his military chief have to build up an army and air force so they can take on India, because India establishes a blockade.
Yeah.
And actually, the real life person who inspired the character of James Bond features in this novel. He was
I know.
it's an extremely, to answer your question, in Lahore, sorry, I'll step back again. So in all these three books, I have two threads which interweave.
Yeah.
One is Delhi thread, in which my protagonists are Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and Mountbatten.
Right.
And then there is the Aam Aadmi in order thread, which in Lahore is set in Lahore, in Hyderabad is set in the princely kingdom of Hyderabad, in Kashmir set in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. So the idea really is to bring these two on the same stage, so that, for the first time we can see the decisions that are being taken in Delhi, how are they impacting the ordinary person living in the city that is impacted by them. So Lahore, the narrative was in a sense straightforward, because we are still under British rule. Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, and the rest of Congress is trying to wrestle with Dickie Mountbatten, the last viceroy, in, get a nation which is complete. Now here I would like our readers to at least know, or remember if they already know, that the British had no interest in the territorial integrity of India. They were like, 15th August is coming, and they wanted to leave and ensure that every white man, woman, and child was safe.
Yeah.
And, so I'm trying to, in this narrative, show what is the negotiations happening in Delhi, how hard are people struggling to ensure that India, which is left behind, has some kind of physical entity.
Right.
And the India that we see today, and we assume is the India that the British left behind, is incorrect.
Right.
When we left India, India was sort of structured in two parts.
Yeah.
One was the British administered India, which was called the provinces, right? So Punjab was a province, Bombay was a province, Mysore was a princely state. Then there were princely states, which were ruled by the kings, nizams, nawabs, and had a British resident. So obviously the British had oversight, but for notional purposes, it was ruled by a prince. Now, these are two kinds of Indias which existed. And there were 555 princely states. Almost 300 of those were in what is currently the state of Gujarat. So just imagine if you are driving down from Bombay to Ahmedabad, and then you will have to pass through customs checkpoint after every 10 kilometers, because they will be like, okay, this is an independent state. Where do you want to go? You know, you'll have to, whatever, show your passport and go through. 300 of those were in the state of Gujarat.
Wow.
So when the reorganization of states had to be done before 15th August, because come 15th August, each of those princely states had the option of saying, hey, I want to go to India, I want to go to Pakistan, I want to be independent.
Yeah.
Now just imagine the map of India that you see and just poke holes in it, 555, some large, some small. That is the India that the British were leaving us. So that is what I cover in Lahore as well. How Vallabhbhai Patel with VP Menon are scrambling to get these princely states to agree to accede to India, and which by the laws of partition, they ideally should, because they were Hindu majority. Only three majority, which went to Pakistan.
Yeah.
So, you know, that is the narrative in Lahore. But in Hyderabad, as I said, the stakeholders have just multiplied. I mean, the has a role to play. And we finally end up with what is unofficially but acknowledged, which is called a police operation, but is actually a war. India went to war with Hyderabad and took Hyderabad.
Yeah.
And so it's a very interesting narrative. And, you know, that was my attempt to bring that story alive to people, because Hyderabad has such a rich culture, such a significant history. And I think it helps us to know the struggles that were involved in making that Hyderabad, Dakhan, a part of what we see as India today. And the narrative continues in Kashmir, which becomes even more complicated. So I would advise you just to actually begin with Lahore, which is maybe the simple narratives, and then proceed forward. Though each of them is a standalone book.
So that's why I said, don't jump right into it. Buy the first one first. Get 2 books in your cart.
Yes.
Simple as that.
Hardly.
So, because it gets kind of, readers will get kind of a taste of what's going to happen, because it's a simpler, perhaps not a simpler one, but comparatively, it's a simpler one to sort of understand the narrative, because there are a lot of things happening, but in Hyderabad, you got to be on your toes, because there are a lot of characters, a lot is happening, a lot of action is also happening. I was very happy to see that. I'm an action geek, so I was very happy to see that a lot. Sydney Cotton shows up, so it's a it's kind of a very good movie, right? Trust me. But
it is a thriller, because time is a thriller.
Yeah.
And the happening are thrillerish. There are plans for war happening. There are spies. There are planes flown in the middle of the. There is treasure.
At the end of the book, I was like, okay, give me more. So it is like that. So the speed kind of increases. Also, with the Nizam, you're so right that this story needed to be told, because it has been, I would say, kind of, overshadowed by the Bangladesh story and the Pakistan story, of course. They are very important, but this was, it was very complicated. And you guys, you have to read the book to know what I'm talking about. But let's talk about the Nizam. What a quirky character. I mean, it is just amazing. I was just trying to imagine what this guy would be like. Oh my God. Please tell us more. And what were your findings? Did you know beforehand what you were getting into with the Nizam, or did things, kind of surprise you?
Okay, so I have been researching this trilogy for 20 years now. So in a sense, I have lived with these characters for such a long time. Yeah. Because as I tell, I teach a creative writing class here as well, and I tell my readers as well that, when you take these larger than life people who have lived, who were actual historical figures, be it Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, Dickie Mountbatten, the Nizam of Hyderabad, who featured on the cover of Time as the wealthiest man in the world. Now, all these are actual people, and therefore, when I create them as my characters, there are 2 things that I need to do. One is I have to be absolutely accurate and be authentic to who they were, which means that I have to go through archives and read books and access data, which tells me, like, I was very surprised when I started reading about Jawaharlal Nehru and discovered that he was 5 feet 4 inches, which is my height, incidentally. Yeah. Because these are such tall figures, right? And it's not that Vallabhbhai Patel was any taller. But what I'm trying to say We are now living in an age with better nutrition, etc. In the world, people are generally taller. But
Yeah.
these people, so trying to get, so one, you have to be absolutely accurate. So for
Yeah.
instance, book, I was very surprised when I learned that Jawaharlal Nehru used to smoke cigarettes. He was actually a very regular and heavy smoker
Yeah.
till the point when he gave it up. So if
Yeah.
he's smoking cigarettes, what cigarettes does he smoke? What is the brand? It was Triple
Mm.
Five. Did
Okay.
cigarettes come in a packet, or did they come in a tin at the time?
Yeah.
So writing historical fiction is also an act of paying homage, you
Yeah.
know, to the people that you are bringing to life on the pages.
Right.
So there is that act of being absolutely accurate. But then there is also this act of, in writing of, but he's a character.
Yeah.
So Vallabhbhai Patel, what is his relationship with Maniben, who's his daughter, and whom normally in text you will find a mention here and there. But
Right.
Maniben is a fully live, living person, and this is a father and daughter relationship. Beyond the fact that she worked as his secretary, she was his record keeper, she sat on all his meetings, she did the minutes of the meeting. Who
Yeah.
is she? What are her concerns? When she, Vallabhbhai Patel had a problem of colon, which would flare up regularly, and that is because of all the days that he spent in jail, eating
Yeah.
was not nutritious.
Right.
So what kind of food did she prepare for him?
Right.
And obviously, I'm not trying to give a lecture here, but then I have to weave it into the narrative in a way that you will see Vallabhbhai Patel not
Yeah.
only as the Iron Man of India, but also the loving father. What are his
Yeah.
concerns? What are his relationship? What are his interactions with his daughter? So, I was consistently being surprised, as I said, but surprised over a 20-year period. And the Nizam of Hyderabad, I agree with you, is, I think of him like a Lear-like character. Shakespeare's great play on King Lear,
Yeah.
because he's so full of contradictions. He's the
Yeah.
wealthiest man in the world, but he's so miserly. His stick actually is broken and is mended, you know,
Yeah.
with whatever tape, thread, it has been mended.
Somebody points out the Sherwani as well. That.
Yeah, his cap has never, his fez has never been changed in how many
Yeah.
years? See the
Yeah.
dirt on it.
Yeah.
And all that information I picked up from the journals recorded by British residents who had met him on a frequent basis, and also Dickie Mountbatten's very capable assistant, Campbell Joseph, who did that. So he is, as I said, he was a person who was very interested in communal harmony. He said the Hindus and Muslims of Hyderabad are like my two eyes.
Right.
Sheer shakkar. He would like the way sugar is in rice pudding, right? That's the way the Muslims are embedded together, and which was true because they all dress the same. You could not look at a man or a woman and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is a Hindu or this is a Muslim," because they dress the same.
Yeah.
So, and the Nizam spent money, on, like he invested in the Osmania University.
Yeah.
He restored the frescoes at Ajanta.
Yeah.
And so he's an amazing character, but he's also
Yeah.
a character who's driven by a deep insecurity. Now, I don't want to give it away, but there
All
is a curse which hangs over the Nizam's family.
right.
And the Nizam knows, he's very aware that may fall at any time. So he keeps these trucks which are laden with jewels in his basement because he's like,
Right.
if I have to flee, and there are the threats to him don't come only from, in a sense, India. He perceives that
Yeah.
India will attack and invade. It's also from the communist uprising.
Right.
Again, a lot of people are not aware, but China was very interested in India at that time. And remember, India is a new nation.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are watching India unfold have taken bets that India as a country, as a nation, is not going to survive.
Right.
Because too many things which need to be put into place. And there is this massive communist uprising in the princely state, the
Yeah.
kingdom of Hyderabad, and China is very interested in what is happening. And people tend to forget that in the immediate neighborhood of India, like Burma's new prime minister was
Yeah.
assassinated by his own soldiers within 6 weeks of becoming a prime minister. And we
Wow.
lost Mahatma Gandhi,
Yeah.
within 6 months. So this was an atmosphere of extreme insecurity, great fear, where a lot of work had to be done. And that is the attempt to tell a story, because I want the readers to be engaged, But I think the
Right.
readers were engaged because history itself is so thrilling at that time.
Truly, truly. It is super engaging. I mean, once you get into this world, and I have read, like, since the pandemic, I have read a bunch of books in this kind of in this world, and the human aspect, it's very interesting. For example, there's a book being written inside the book. That
Yeah.
is very meta.
Yeah.
Emily is writing a book on the Nizam, and very interesting. I mean, that could be another book. I mean, in my opinion, that would be very interesting to be kind of interviewing and kind of. Where did that come from? And this human aspect, these human characters that come in. It's the kind of template that you have kind of started from Lahore, and I'm sure you're done with Kashmir, right? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
about it.
Manuscript is with the publisher. My editors have.
And also, this template it works. I mean, just works because, I read a couple of books and they were like in the very non-fiction sort of way. And it gets slightly, let's just say it very tiring because we don't want just the political aspect. We want what was happening, a journalist view perhaps on ground, like a camera, just be there and tell us what was happening in Lahore. Obviously, there was so much of gore. In fact, in this as well, there is a lot of gore. A lot is happening on ground. But my question about Emily's book, and then of course the human aspect to it. How does one kind of bring in fiction and then sort of just give a hint of it and then go away? What is the right balance? How does one decide that?
Okay. So your two-part question. Let me answer the first one on structure, and then I'll come to Emily's book. So I have struggled with it. So it is a real struggle. The struggle is
Yeah.
real, folks. Because you both like historical fiction, and at the same time, as I said, when I
Mm.
write these books, I want anybody to pick it up and say, without thinking that they're learning, but when they're finished, say, oh my God, I didn't know. I actually want them to get a handle on our history. Because, worldwide, history is being weaponized. And my intention as a writer is to take the reader there, help
Yeah.
them walk through that time period in those gullies and lanes and the power corridors, and then make up their mind and think for themselves what was happening. What does it tell me now?
Cut you off. Sorry about that. I This is so everybody needs to read these books, of course. You said that history is being weaponized, and I was talking about to my wife, and she was like, how's the book? And she I told her that it is a very important book, of course. But she said that, okay, it's great to learn about history, and she just shrugged it away kind of. But I said that it has been weaponized. you
Mm,
know
mm,
we need to read, because if you don't know it all, then
yeah,
you're like, okay, Sardar Patel did this, and the RSS was this, Hindu Mahasabha, Arya Samaj. We just throw around words on WhatsApp.
yeah,
Let's be honest. Please
absolutely.
continue. So
Yeah,
sorry about that.
no, this is a conversation, and I couldn't
Yeah.
agree with you more because absolutely, and that's my intent with these books. It's a bit of a time travel that I plan. Like you get into a capsule and you travel to 47, and then you see for yourself. And I really feel that that is a way to empower people. Then you
Right.
decide, what makes
Yeah.
sense. Maybe you will go down some other rabbit holes, read up more books. Maybe you'll get more engaged. But exactly, you're not just going to throw out words that, oh, Vallabhbhai Patel and Nehru were enemies. They were not. They were
मुझे
partners.
मुझे पता था कि वो देहरादून आए थे, मुझे नहीं पता था.
Yeah, and
We
they
are based. I didn't know about Jawahar. I knew that he was in the prison. Of course, everybody knows about that. It's common
right.
knowledge. But with Sardar Patel's thing and what was happening at the Birla House, oh my God! Let's keep this for a later question. Let's
Yes.
continue with what.
So as I said, I have when I was doing the research, I was I had these folders on each of these men because first I have to get the political figures, everything down, and I was doing my own oral history research, talking to people on the ground, the generation which has witnessed partition. And just for your readers, I come from a very small border town on the border between India and Pakistan, which is called Firozpur. And by the laws of India's partition, it should have gone to Pakistan, but it stayed within India. And if you read Lahore Book 1, you will find out why. But
And Gurdas
yes,
and Gurdas.
Gurdaspur, yes,
Huh.
Gurdaspur. up. So I grew up there. I grew up with stories of partition. From every household had stories to tell. And
Mhm.
when I was growing up, in my history textbooks at school, I didn't find those stories.
Yeah.
So this is, as I said, so when I started collecting, so I was doing parallel things. I was going to the archives, I was doing oral history, and I was just building these fat folders on each of these characters and trying to understand them deeper and deeper. And then I reached a point where but I have to start writing now. They're all here, but how? But again, the thing is, how do I write? Because as I
Yeah.
said, I'm very authentic, but then I also want it to be a story. I want you to have characters that you can engage with. And as वो I think शाहरुख खान का एक डायलॉग है कि पता नहीं तुम दुनिया में कुछ ढूंढ रहे होते हो ना तो वो मिल जाता है तुम्हें, something like that. But it
Shit.
happened, it happened with me because I was doing, I had enrolled, we had moved to New York City by the time, and I was studying at City College because,
Okay.
my is I trained as an engineer. I went to IIM Calcutta. I had a
Oh,
corporate.
wow.
You are as well?
Not Yes, yes. I'm an electrical engineer, but I did not make it to IIM, so I'm.
That's okay. That's okay. I'm an electronics engineer. I worked in engineering for a couple of years. I went to IIM Calcutta. I had a corporate career. And at some point, these stories just needed to be told. But, to cut a long story short, I enrolled in a part-time MFA program, just to have a community of like-minded people because, mere sare engineering, business wale dost, agli kitab kab aa rahi hai, it doesn't roll off a shop floor, right? And I was very lucky. I came across a professor. She is now teaching at Columbia University. Her name is Sadia Hartman. And she
Okay.
actually has come up with an approach to historical fiction. It's called critical fabulation. What
Okay.
it really means is that you have a skeleton of very hard research, which means, every single point in that has been verified 10 times. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, again, based on your research, you
Yeah.
start putting flesh on that.
Yeah.
So, and for me, when that happened, it was like, bulb jal gaya. I
Ah,
knew how to approach it. And I
yeah.
knew I could be absolutely, authentic. I could tell a story and I could have the reader's pulse racing because, as I said, history is my biggest
Yeah.
ally because the time is so turbulent. So that is the approach. And I would urge your readers to, they can just look up Sadia Hartman, critical fabulation, and they can go down that rabbit hole. So coming to Emily Perkins, when I was reading about Hyderabad and thinking of how do I construct this narrative, I'm a history buff. I was
Okay.
very struck by how the atmosphere in Hyderabad at the time, there was deep inequality, right? The peasants were really poor. Nizam and his with his fabulous palaces was the richest man in the world. There is this communist struggle happening primarily because the peasants have revolted, right,
Right.
against oppression. There are these very wealthy Hindu landlords, and caste is big. Caste plays a very big role there. So I was thinking, the more I thought about it, it reminded me of France just before the revolution. And I
Mhm.
thought, okay, if I bring in a person who can compare and contrast the two, it tells my readers, what it is looking like.
Right.
And Nizam's daughter-in-law, younger daughter-in-law, Nilofer, has studied in Paris, right?
Right.
So it allowed me, therefore, to bring in her friend who studied in Paris with her, and therefore she can bring in the comparison. And there
Right.
were British people,
Yeah.
women, who were not sort of in the administration or soldiers who were
Yeah.
living or visiting at that time. So that allowed me through Emily Perkins to give a white person's perspective, an
Yeah.
educated, empathetic white person's perspective into how
Yeah.
things can be.
Yeah.
So I thought I was very happy with Emily and the role I managed to give her.
Loved it. One of my favorite characters, and I think most of the Anglo exodus happened in the 50s. I don't know. I read somewhere, and I think so. Ruskin Bond has also kind of talked about it multiple times.
Brilliantly.
So yeah, that happened. Okay. One more thing, a lot of writers. I just wanted to take your point that you have kind of made it a point that you get into a creative writing course and sort of learn the particular tropes. Of course, you are passionate about history. So there are some people who say like just like organically likh lete hain and it happens, but what's your opinion on that? Because like 6 months back, I decided that I'll be writing non-fiction, and it is easier said than done. Goodness gracious, how do you guys do it? Tell us about that, because
You
you come from different
put your
backgrounds.
ass in the chair and you write. You know, when I met Gulzar Saab the first time, because my first published book, The Long Walk Home,
Yeah.
he loved it. The publisher HarperCollins had sent the book to him for, advanced praise, and he liked it so much. He said, "Ki mera ye sher hai, I will dedicate to that." So people
Oh,
who are interested, the sher is on the back cover of the book.
uh,
Um, but when I met Gulzar Saab, it was my first book, and when I was the sort of our interaction was close to ending, I asked him, "Ki,
mm,
sir, do you have any advice for me?" And
mm,
he said, "देखो मनरीत, ये आपकी पहली किताब है, ये बहुत लंबी सड़क है, अगर इस पे आपको चलना है.
uh,
And writing is तपस्या. ये
yes,
रोज करनी और ये करने से आती है."
yes,
So that it is at the end a very simple answer, but the
yeah.
practice of as always is difficult.
I
And answer your specific question. See, I am self-trained. I taught myself to write, and I
mm,
had published 4 books before I came to New York City and had a chance to enroll into an MFA program.
yeah,
So I think there are merits to both.
yeah,
There are merits to trying to forge your own way, because when you're teaching yourself something, it's because you're deeply motivated, and it always
right,
helps. But I also feel that there is no harm in reaching out if there is a school, but go to one which you will value. Just don't go to any ये degree थोड़ी चाहिए. You're going
uh,
there because you want to learn the tools of the craft, and
like
it
you
is a
found a professor,
yeah,
then you
yeah,
approach.
and it
But
is it is a craft, because we are all readers, but to be a good writer, you have to learn to read deeply. That's a different kind of read, right?
true.
It is when you read something, you say, अच्छा writer क्या कहना चाह रहा है, कैसे कर
uh,
रहा है.
uh,
Like you said, you liked Emily Perkins. So why do I like Emily Perkins as a reader? What did the writer do? What did she give
yeah,
Emily in terms of
yeah,
characteristics? Or what is there in Emily that appeals to me? Or the Nizam, So that is deep reading, where you take a text and you deconstruct it. And as the readers, we normally don't do it because and I don't want them to do it, because you want them to just be carried away. But if you
yeah.
are a writer, then you need to be able to practice the deep reading. And I tell my family that for me, reading is forever ruined, because I cannot open any text without saying, huh? ये क्या हो रहा है? ये कैसे हो रहा है? So, it's a
It
hat.
happens.
It's a hat. It's always.
Because yeah, I when I started doing this like 7 years back, I was having so much fun. But now I start kind of, although I'm also self-taught, I'm a self-taught reader. If there is something like that, I don't know, but a deep reader maybe. I'm trying to be one more better every day. But it kind of ruins a lot of the fun,
Yeah.
because even with all characters, I'm like, is it contrived, is it not, it's like that. But I'm happy to report readers that in this book and the previous one also, nothing is seemingly contrived. It's very organic, it flows in and out organically. So that's why I love your writing. And मैंने पहली वाली तो पढ़ी नहीं है कोई, तो I need to go back to them also to make a
Yeah.
comparison. What was
Right.
the difference that New York made to you? But Okay, towards the end of the book, of course, a lot of people don't know about the about Operation Polo also, and that is so integral to what has happened in this world. And it, I felt that you kind of went into it very quickly and came out of it, in a jiffy. Was that like? Why did you want to do that? Or maybe you didn't want too much gore, or just because that it was a quick operation you did that? I wanted to just ask you.
No, it's a very good question. So, with any narrative, you have to think of the structure. How am I going to structure it? And for me, the story of Hyderabad was really the long run up to it. The back and forth, the negotiations, because the Nizam is a master at that, right? He keeps sending, he keeps agreeing, then he retracts. So this is back and forth, back and forth. And the readers will find in the narrative that the lawyer he has is one of the sharpest minds in Britain. This is
Yeah,
the person who buys the king. So the
right.
Nizam has the best counsel on hand. And he is just playing a game of back and forth, and which is then reaches a point. The violence in the countryside is ratcheting between the Razakars and the Hindu Mahasabha and the RSM, the peasant uprising, the communists. So it's all ahead. And both Vallabhbhai Patel and Jawaharlal Nehru are reaching a point where they realize that if they don't step in, then, the kind of communal riots that will break out,
Right.
They should be forcing their hand earlier.
Yeah.
So, there is this huge run up. And in the run up also, I don't want to give too much away, but the Nizam and his army chief are giving an impression, which India believes takes very seriously, of a very credible position being built up. And in those days, the British used to use a term called police operation, which was armed, but it was a soft term, so that you think, it is a police operation. So Operation Polo, which was an army operation, was called a police operation.
Right.
And when Operation Polo,
even now,
sorry, yes, but some things are difficult to shake off, right?
Yes.
So Operation Polo commenced. I mean, within 36 hours, everything was over.
Yeah.
It was like literally they rolled in and they basically took Hyderabad. So in terms of machinations, military strategy, actual warfare, there is not much happening. So I bring in what is the plans are being done, but it ends so quickly that there was really no time needed to hover over that. Now in Kashmir, it is very different. In Kashmir, the first Indo-Pak war, which we still don't call a war, started in 2 months of the independence of India. In October 1947, we were actually at war. So their war has a big...
you have mentioned it vaguely in one chapter and gotten out of it. Like,
yes. Because I want us to know that, because otherwise these two things are happening at the same time, which also give us a reason to pause and just try and imagine what a mammoth task our leaders were facing. So they were facing this war-like situation in Kashmir, right at the head of India, and in Hyderabad, right in the belly of India. And
but my team, my marketing team would have loved this. Just give a dash of publicity, to kind of just tease it and then come out of it. Awesome, and that is kind of just like breaking the third wall and kind of saying it there. I mean, that was a great moment for me because the narrative is completely different.
Yeah, I wanted readers to know that Kashmir is happening, but hey, it deserves its own story because these are such big stories and they need to be told. So you have to give them the attention that they require. And that is why I was very clear that in Hyderabad, it is the whole game that is being played out, all these perceptions which are being created of war-like situation. And then it really, when the penny drops, it's like this, right? So that was deliberate. And as I said, in Kashmir, it is very different. War has a big role to play, which is why I had to research so much about what was happening on the ground. What uniform did the soldiers wear? What was it like? What weapons they...
there was this moment where, Nilofer and the girl gang is kind of hanging out in this Buick and, near an Irani cafe. Oh my God, that was like so amazing. I just wanted to be in that Irani cafe.
I would love to see it, as you said, on the film screen. Just imagine that. Huh? And she was regarded as the most beautiful woman in the world. So, the extremes in that world are amazing. So
I think not even a movie. This should be a series. And a movie won't do justice. Yes, it should happen. I don't know if you're talking about it to people or not. I think so. It has got so much to offer. It should be on Netflix. I just believe that. So my penultimate question, because we can go on and on because there is so much going on, man. It is ridiculous. So Jabili, am I pronouncing it right?
Yes.
Great. Jabili is a very integral character on the sort of what's happening in Hyderabad during that whole period. This character is kind of very intriguing. What's happening to Jabili? It's because it also gives us context of of course, there are so many players that are there, communists and everybody, who are just looking at people and hiring them. Even if they see a spark, they hire them to kind of, wreak havoc. So tell us more about Javili and what
Yeah.
is her sort of role in this entire canvas.
Yeah. So, Jabili is a peasant woman. She's 16 years old. And for your readers, I would like them to know that the peasant uprising, which is basically, this was a very feudal structure, which means you have these landlords who are immensely wealthy, who have these large swaths of land, and who pay a certain commission to the Nizam. That is where the system was structured. But the peasants and the laborers who worked on the farms were basically like bonded labor.
Yeah.
It was servitude. What
Okay.
we can comparison could be made with the black slave laborers on cotton plantations in the US. So
Uh,
these were really laborers, which means that one generation died, the next generation continued to be in bondage to these landlords, right? So so Jabali is a 16-year-old girl who comes from that kind of a family. And
yes.
she is actually sent off as part
Yeah.
of what is called Adibapa. Adibapa at the time meant that when the landlord, let's say the landlord of the family to which Jabali's parents are bonded,
Yeah.
when that landlord marries his daughter off, Jabali goes as Adibapa, which means she is the sort of the dowry, one dowry item which is sent along. So
Okay.
not only to take care of that girl and look after her needs, but also to service her husband when needed.
Yeah.
So that is the level of bonded labor that exists. So, but thankfully, because Jabali is my character, and
Yeah.
I want my to rebel and be feisty, so Jabali says nothing doing. I'm going to escape. I'm going to go join the red flag because the communists they know as the red flag, and
Lal
also
Salam.
this Lal Salam. This is not untoward because the peasant uprising began with a woman called
Hmm.
Chitiala Asma who was, I think, 35 years old or 40 at the time, and said, I will not pay
Okay.
my, give off my crop to the landlord. And that started a rebellion. A bit like what we're seeing in Iran right now with everybody just
Yes.
joining in.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
and there were a lot of women
Hmm.
in the peasant struggle, and because of the communist philosophy that women are treated equal as men, there was a place for them. They were taught, and women served a very important role as couriers. They were taking messages
Hmm.
because men, policemen will look at a woman and say, "Huh," nobody will pay attention, right? So Jabali comes in there, and Jabali plays a very important role as a courier. She's also one part of that love story, which is at the heart of Hyderabad. Because I do believe when I'm telling these stories that while we are talking about trauma and violence, we tend to forget at times that there is love at the heart of it all. You
True.
know, there is a parent's love for a child, like Vallabhai is for his daughter, Jawaharlal Nehru is for his grandchildren. There is also the love of a man for a woman for a man, and Jabali is part of that love story.
Yeah. And in fact, I think on page 77, I have it marked here. Ali is saying that, very, this is what I love about this novel and the other one as well, Lahore as well, that we get the perspective of the common man. It's very important because politicians' perspective can be perhaps biased or I don't know. I don't trust politicians anyway, so I won't take them seriously. But
Right.
see, if Hyderabad joins India, nothing will change. Now the Nizam makes all the money in a free India. It will be the wealthy elites. Nothing will change for the people of Hyderabad. Poor now, poor then. That is so, because it's true. I mean, whatever happens in the bigger scheme of things, there are people there who will always be kind of at the bottom, and struggle. So all this is happening, but the common man is again, is like, okay, what the heck? Whoever rules us, I don't care.
You
But
know that वो शोले में था ना शायद डायलॉग चक्की पिसिंग
yes,
या द
that
कॉमन वो चक्की भी पीस रहा है और पिस भी रहा है.
हाँ
Is that
सही बात. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I just hope if everything was. I'm glad that you have written the book so that we get sort of a taste of what would have happened. But I'm glad everything was documented easily. So I won't go into how much research and what you have done because everything is there, of course, in the you have mentioned it at the end of the book. Also, your favorites, in this sort of the partition books, you can call it. It's a genre now. Imagine, I mean, it's a
I,
genre people are writing.
yeah, no, I'm glad it is. And also, it's tell people every time that I am so glad that we are seeing more writing,
Yeah,
fiction, non-fiction, memoir, history, narrative, non-fiction in partition, because a couple of reasons. One, partition is such a cataclysm. And when partition happened, people who moved east and west, this is considered the largest migration in modern human history.
right.
Largest, right? Just for that reason alone, just look at the number of stories that need to be told, the individual stories, right? And then second, as a point of comparison, I live in New York City, which is the home of the Jewish diaspora. When World War II happened and the Holocaust happened, a lot of them fled
Right.
to us and they came to New York. And the reason I bring it up is that every year, without fail, there are these brilliant books that come out which are still dealing with the Jewish Holocaust. They
Right.
can be novels, they can be memoirs, they
Yeah.
can be historical fiction, they can be re-examination.
Yeah.
Brilliant books. And every year, one book or the other is making to some awards. And that is important because,
Perhaps
sorry?
your favorite Holocaust book, maybe our readers can pick one up, and one from partition, barring, I mean, of course, your books, they are there, but barring, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to remember because the Jewish Holocaust, there's so many fantastic books. Uh, in terms of recommending something which is visually appealing and easier to read, I will recommend a book called Mouse, Maus.
Oh, I bought it. Graphic
Yes,
novel, na?
yes. It
I,
is,
where the
it,
heck is
yes. Well, if you haven't read it, read it. It is a brilliant, brilliant book
just
on.
picked it up from Blossoms in Bangalore, and it's amazing. I mean,
You
I
made
looked
a
at
wonderful
price.
choice.
हाँ, मैंने प्राइस देखा, मैंने कहा बहुत महंगी है, but I'll buy it.
Yes, classic. You will not go wrong in this. And every panel, because it is a graphic novel, every panel, every page is so rooted inside, so beautifully done. Absolutely read
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
So Maus from the Jewish Holocaust, and in terms of the partition, there is even in India there is a lot of literature. There is I don't read Bengali, so and a lot of literature is in the our regional languages, which hopefully gets translated into English. But even in Punjabi. Amrita Pritam, people, and now she has been sort of recited by many.
yes,
Bhisham Sani's Tamas.
okay,
Read it in Hindi for people who can. Otherwise, it is available in English translation. I think it is, and of course, a TV series was made out of it. People should watch that as well. It is just incredibly brilliant because it takes you to the time. If I'm attempting a time capsule, oh,
yeah,
what Bhisham Sani does in Tamas is just extraordinary. I would also mention another book, which people I'm sure are familiar with and know very well, Train to
yeah,
Pakistan. And the reason I am mentioning that book is that it is written in English
yeah,
originally.
yeah,
I read it. See, like most Indians of my generation, certainly, we grew up on British literature, right? English literature.
true.
Dickens, Hardy, Shakespeare, all that. When I read Train to Pakistan, that was the first book which showed me how a writer could use the English language and bring their land, its people alive. Like,
Right.
I could smell, and remember, I come from the heart of Punjab.
I know.
I hardcore Punjab as goes. But when I read Train to Pakistan, I thought I could smell Mere Desh ki mitti, Meri
Uh,
dharti. Because the way he uses language to wrestle with the story, with the characters, the way we think, that is brilliant. So I recommend that to people who want to learn how you can use this Queen's language and make it your own.
yes, पहले दो chapters में एकदम, first two chapters, you are hit by it, and kind of, then you are in it, in that
Yeah.
book. And definitely a great recommendation, both recommendations. और पढ़नी चाहिए readers को, of course. Hyderabad and Lahore. तो
Yes.
सारे कार्ट में डालना चाहिए आपको. So
Yes. And there is absolutely a fantastic discount happening right now on Amazon. So
awesome,
for
awesome. तो
who are interested.
Amazon से करनी है, Amazon से कर ले, डिस्काउंट तो है ही. एंड देन ऑफ कोर्स इंडिपेंडेंट बुक स्टोर्स हर जगह है ही.
Wherever
डू.
you have, I would say go to the bookstore first. Please support bookstores. But sometimes if you don't have access, if you're in a small town,
छोटे शहरों में होता नहीं है, तो you don't get all the books, access नहीं होती कई बार. So that's why sometimes we get like hate कि Amazon करो, but you don't get these books there. What to do?
I
I mean,
know from a very small town, believe me, and Amazon delivers in small towns. I'm sorry, but that's a fact.
yeah, that's fact. That's a fact, and we can't run away from it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Henry. It has been awesome reading both the books, and kind of reminded me of the first book as well. Is bar padha to, and so on point. Who am I to say anything? But readers will kind of pick it up, give you the feedback. आप Instagram पे बता सकते हैं, और I don't know if your email ID is in public, but if it is there, it is okay.
Yes. Google
Great.
it.
So people can send you feedback as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I look forward to
yeah.
hearing.
So looking
Yes.
forward to Kashmir, and
Yes. Thank you.
yeah. So, and yeah. Until then, we kind of we'll look forward to your recommendations as well. Read those recommendations, and thank you so much for doing this. You are just amazing. Thank you so
Thank
much.
No, thank you. And I always tell people all these lovely podcasts and Insta lives are happening. I think it's bringing so much joy into the lives of readers and
मुझे
connecting readers and
offline. I'm going to do something offline now. Whenever you are here, we'll do something offline. Perhaps the podcast in Delhi or something. I don't know.
yes,
We can do that. If do you fly to India
I
much?
am in fact in India for a book tour in January, and I will be pretty much in many parts of India. So I'll be
तो
sharing it
दिल्ली आता हूँ.
on
मैं
social
दिल्ली
media.
आता हूँ.
Bilkul. Yeah, there will be an official book launch. So please, I will be sharing
Awesome.
the details. So, come. It'll be wonderful to actually, you put a face to a person, right? You meet them actually. But then
I know.
because of the pandemic, through the ether that we have been seeing one another.
Yep, yep. Awesome book tour coming up, and I hope you can make it to Dehradun as well. It would be nice. We would love to host you here. That would be
I
so
will
awesome.
to Dehradun, but unfortunately not this time because I'm actually going to Hyderabad as well, because that is where.
Hyderabad. Okay,
But
cool. Thanks
so
so
much.
much for yeah, yeah.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
at
you.
the next. Bye.
Bye.